Either you do or don't have it. Young, black, and gifted, talking the whole package. Magic, magic, light, camera, action. You are now witnessing the power of black magic. Black magic. You are now witnessing the power of black magic.
G'day everyone, how's it going? I hope you're all well. Got another LazerGrrl analysis video here today. This one's going to split into two parts, so make sure you check out the second one after you've watched this one. Now, there are a few games here that I play with Pigg. They've been a member of the Discord for a while, jumped in, had a few games. Now, they're not quite a beginner, but there's still a few things that we can learn. So we're going to go through, analyze what they did well, what they didn't do so well, and where they can improve. You'll quickly see I've also added some coordinates here, so it'll be much easier to go through and talk about where specific things are supposed to go. Now, I'm going to try and not pause it too much so you can kind of see how you think and analyze the game as we go. And I'm not going to talk about too much of the beginning strategy because you need to go and have a look at that video if you want a more in-depth guide on that. You'll also notice that my movement is very jittery. This is because I've got a movement nerf that I put on this match just to make it a bit more balanced and have a bit of a handicap, give Pigg a bit of a chance to begin with. So you'll notice both of us here starting putting our gens in the 6th row and 3rd row, getting in our gens and our lasers. Pigg opting to go in and block here, which is a good strategy, but again, it's pretty annoying to actually block, so it's a bit taboo in the community. Pigg finally connecting top row, getting in their final laser there, blocking off my placement, which is really good. So right now they need to fully connect their bottom row, row 3, and then they need to start bringing in a super laser. So putting these blocks here isn't really doing anything, it's kind of just wasting time right now. So as you can see, I've gone in, supered in the bottom row, row 3, start to push on that a little bit further. So Pigg really needs to super top row now, try and claim some of that space. It's okay to super mid, but they have to obviously connect it for it to work. Again, as soon as you've gotten that laser up, just up to the IF column, you can stop there. You only need to have the actual laser that far forward, not another one to J. So again, Pigg wasting a lot of time, just sort of bringing in random blocks here and there, not really doing much. And you'll notice that they've got a full banger energy, which is pretty much the indication that they need to super somewhere. At this stage, they could get away with supering mid, that would be fine. I would recommend probably supering maybe top, see if you can get in there, but there's a fair bit of clutter there, so they'd probably want to super bottom, try and reclaim some of this back. Again, in my stage, I want to get into mid, super mid. Technically, you're supposed to connect to whichever side you're strongest, either the 9th row or the 3rd row, the bottom row. Technically, I'm stronger down there, but Pigg's not really getting in to disrupt anything top anyway. Again, Pigg's still got a full base of energy, but you also got to look out for the lasers there as well. Alright, this is game 2. Again, I've got a speed handicap, so I'm a little bit slower than they are. And again, make sure you get top gen and walls first, then bottom gen and walls, then you need to go to mid, row 6. It's more important to put your blocks in the IF column before the J, or the G column before the F column. That way your opponent can't get in and sneak in, which you'll see in a couple of the later games. So Pigg, as you can see, a lot further ahead than I am now, which is good. Better to build your walls up in the ELF column rather than K. You'll see that in a little while. So as you can see in the top, it's better to place it there than one forward. So all Pigg needs to do now is just get a gen and a laser in mid, and they're pretty much set, ready to go. After that, they just need to super either top or bottom. I would probably recommend top because that's where I have a laser. So you'd really disrupt my eco there. Okay, so he's opted to connect to mid for a quick mid super, which he definitely can do, but he didn't actually super it, and he doesn't need to because I don't have a laser there. So he opted to go to the bottom, which is good. But he didn't need to connect these at the top, so that was just a waste of time. So he really needs to now just move up to the G column. He doesn't need to go any further. And it's really good to break the super as soon as possible, just to ensure that it doesn't waste energy. So perfect, they've gone bottom. Now they need to just connect bottom to mid through J4 and J5, and then super mid. Again, these two blocks are actually hindering them at the moment, kind of preventing them from getting there. And yes, it is connecting them, they're super, but I'm supering top, so that super in mid's not actually going to do a whole lot. Yes, it does actually break them out enough, but if I was quicker, then that wouldn't have done much. So they have actually won mid now. All they need to do is put a wall in I6, get their laser, usually push it forward as far forward, so either G7 or G5. That way I can't block it as much. So right now what Pigg would need to do is probably super top, because that's where I have the most room. just leave mid because they've already won that, and then they just slowly build their way forward. Right now on my side of things, I would probably either want to super back mid if I could, but there's a lot of pressure there. Otherwise I can super bottom, disconnect it from center, which will get rid of one of the lasers, and disrupt a fair bit of their eco. Now, this is one strategy that you can do, especially against beginner players, is break their connection to base, which will stop their economy coming in, because that's usually where it is. But it does end up wasting more energy than you use, so it's usually better just to not do that. As you can see, Pigg hasn't really made much progress, even though they basically have the entirety of mid, so this is where your beginner experience starts to sort of drop out the longer a match goes on, because it's harder to know what you need to do and where you need to prioritize. So again, this doesn't do anything, there's not enough energy to it. Now yes, they have connected it, but your super lasers should be used for offense in terms of breaking lasers, but not in terms of attacking base, because it's just too inefficient. It's too easy to go in and block with walls, and this just wastes energy. Granted, if you've got the extra energy, that's fine, but Pigg has lost top lane, row 9 now, and this is a classic trick that you can do where if you can get your opponent's home generator in either the 9th row or the 3rd row, there's literally no way they can win that back, because you can't fit in a super laser to destroy this one, and there's no point of putting a laser in at 09. So now I can just leave this here, and I know that'll never be taken for the game. So now all I have to do is just keep blocking mid, which I actually already have one laser in here preventing the laser at I7, and then I can just go through and win bottom. And then after that, win mid and win the game. So again, Pigg didn't really use their advantage of having mid and it distracting me to capitalize anywhere else. They kind of just left bottom, ended up losing top, which might end up losing them the game. Of course, the base isn't the only objective in the game. If you can kill your opponent, doesn't matter how far ahead in development they are, that's still a win. So Pigg has actually managed to get a little bit of leeway in mid now. However, you really need to have a laser at the forefront of your mid, because as you can see, I can just put a normal laser there and disrupt their generator. The reason why that laser broke is because they already have two lasers up here powered by these two gens. So the laser at F6 just breaks. Again, I know I'm talking pretty quickly, but these are the things you have to think of on the fly when you're playing. So you've got to be able to recognize and identify, but you've also got to watch out for lasers. Nice snipe. Alright, game 3. Again, clean opening by Pigg here. Walls and gens. I6 and then J6 first. Then heading up to the top ones. Again, it's better to go for that G6 spot before the F6. Pigg starting to bring in a gen at the start, which is really good. Helps your development. And you can get a quicker laser in there. So as you can see, they're way ahead compared to where I am. And perfect. They brought that L9 wall in. It's connected to base. They're getting a little bit more energy now. Getting mid set. Now that wall they just sold would have been better to sit at L3, just to keep that development going. Perfect. All Pigg needs to do is get a laser on top. Good. Nice disruption. So laser in top, and then they just need to simply super either top or bottom. Now that was a bit of a waste of time trying to swap out that wall. You can try and go for the trade if you know your opponent's going to bring in a laser, but it is risky. Again, Pigg was about one laser short of having full development at the start, but we've actually just supered at the exact same time. But you'll notice they're not losing energy and I am, so technically this is actually worse for me. If everything just stays the same, I'll run out of energy and then Pigg will keep going. But I opt to go for 2 supers at this stage. Now it is really going to drain my energy, but it is going to be just enough to get a little bit of leeway. So again, with more experience, you'll know when you can't do that. And again, nice trade there from Pigg, but he's got to be able to get in and replace that. Now again, I'm kind of body blocking here, so he can't just move in and put a wall, but luckily he doesn't. So again, that's where the experience comes in, and he does manage to get that in. However, I was able to get H9 and I9, so I can actually get that gen and laser in there to destroy his gen. Meanwhile, the supers are still going at the bottom, but I am actually out of energy, so my super will break. And this is where Pigg really needs to push that G3 spot just to get that extra room. Push the laser forward, and then he needs to start going for mid. So again, he needs to get rid of that F3 laser, connect to mid, super mid. There's no point of him going for bottom anymore, because he's already won it enough. And as you can see in that meantime, obviously I've gone top, one top. Now all I need to do is connect top to mid. Again, because Pigg wasn't over here, I was able to get that extra gen on J9 and push that forward more. So if you can take the extra energy, then that's great. So again, Pigg has continued to push forward, but it's not going to win them as much energy or as much space in the long run. So again, connect to mid, super mid, slowly work your way up. It's one block at a time. So he's actually disrupting my connection for my super. But again, he really needs to super top row and start to super mid back. Otherwise, he's just going to lose it and then lose the match. Again, this laser down here is not actually doing anything with Pigg. It's not attacking my base and it's not destroying my generator at the bottom. So this is just wasting energy right now. Similar to this laser up here, yes, I'm using a laser to defend it, but I do have more income than they do as soon as I get rid of this super laser. As you can see, I now have one mid, I have one really far forward laser, which is really annoying to verse, and I've got my 2 back gens as well on F6 and H6. So for Pigg, it's basically, the game's already over now, but as you can see, they've actually managed to connect to their base to mid, so they really need to super mid at this stage, so get rid of that bottom super mid, destroy these few blocks, slowly move it forward, and then try and win mid back. However, as you can see, that's the power of mid. If you get all 3 gens, you just get 3 lasers, and the game's basically over. You'll notice here it looks like Pigg's standing still, but unfortunately this game has a few connection issues where when you're playing from really far away, the game takes a little while to catch up. So yeah. Kind of just have to keep playing and hope that it connects. Again, I3 is a bit better. Saves you a little bit of time, but it's more so that your opponent can't capitalize. In the last few games, which will be in the second part, my speed will go back to normal, so you'll be able to see a few of those capitalizations on little errors like that. But good things to focus on, and you can actually practice the opening, just the simple steps where you need to bring things in what order, just in your own time. You don't even have to verse a real player for that. It also helps you with your movements. So as you can see, Pigg is now fully developed. So everything is perfect and I have basically no development. So they're supering bottom, which is perfect, but maybe they're supering bottom. There we go. So yeah, they should have just done that straight away. No question about it. So again, they just need to move the laser one more forward, bring the gen in, connect the wall instead. They swap out that wall at I9, sorry, I3. Perfect. Now, just connect to mid, super mid. That's it. Perfect. Connected to mid. Swap that laser out, I6. I need to swap this one out because you need to attack mid. Doing base damage is okay, but as you can see, it does very little damage, so it's not actually going to do a whole lot in the long run, unless the game drags out, but you never know. Nice trap there. Sometimes you just get cornered. If you don't have enough speed or space, there it goes. So it was a good opening by Pigg. They got developed very quickly, managed to super and then connect to mid, and then you just got to work on that. Again, you want to go mid first before you go either the 9th row or the 3rd row, top or bottom, because mid's the most important part, so you need to protect that. So again, better to go L3 and L9. Pigg should have moved that one more forward. Yeah, there we go. So again, it's important to kind of have preset in your mind as to where you're going to put all the blocks. So that way you can just go in and put it. Perfect. They're set up again. Got that extra block, all those I column. Perfect. Supering bottom. Disrupting my connections. Now they just need to bring in a gen. Bring in a wall, and then they're good. They can connect to mid now, it's fine. But again, you usually want to connect to the side that you're strongest on. And that's perfect. They've actually used their advanced block to just take up that space. It doesn't matter that it's not firing as much because they can just come in and replace it. Technically, they could swap these two right now. But as you can see, I'm being a bit annoying about that. But they need to come in and swap this laser out. Otherwise, I'm going to get this spot. And they're kind of standing doing nothing. So, unless you really know what you're about to do, try not to stand and do nothing. There's always something to do. Again, this is not going to do any damage for me, so Pigg's just wasting time. So, kind of back to where we started. Pigg still got that one extra block pushed forward in that I column, but again, they need to super somewhere. We're in the supering top, which is a pretty good option. But as you can see, I'm opting for a quick super mid, but I did actually connect to the side where my opponent was supering, so not the best decision, and as you can see, I paid for it. So I lost that laser in mid, which is actually 5 energy, so good on Pigg's behalf. Now again, they need to bring in a wall and a gen, so they can actually capitalize on top where they're winning. Don't worry too much about if your opponent's going the bottom. You need to focus on what you're actually attacking first, because once you win mid, that distracts your opponent, in which you can win the other side. And again, when you're supering one of the sides, you really need to make sure you're there. As soon as that block at either G9 or G3 breaks, you need to push forward, because otherwise your laser's just wasting energy. So again, as you can see, I've managed to claim bottom, just get to that I3, connect to mid, and super mid. It's as quick as that. And again, I don't really care what's happening on at the top, because it's going to take Pigg ages to sort out what they're doing up there, and by that time, I'm going to actually win mid. So if you have the resources, you can try and block them and stall them out a bit longer. But as you can see, this is how you need to win mid. Get the 2 gens, connect them with a wall, and put your 2 lasers as far forward as possible. You also need to slowly creep them forward, which is what we call snaking. It's a bit more of an advanced maneuver. Not in concept, but in practice it is, and just in the small technicalities. And as you can see, I've kind of just left top, haven't really worried about it. But now that I've won mid and my opponent is distracted there, I can actually go and win top back. And it's just as quick as that. And as you can see here, bringing in 1 wall and moving your 2 lasers forward more. So again, snaking. Once you've won enough, you can bring in the gen. Now you get all 3 gens. Bring in an extra laser. If you've got one laying around somewhere, may as well use that. And perfect. 3 lasers, all pushed forward as far as they can. And it's basically completely over by now. As soon as you win mid, you win the match. For the most part. Again, moving that laser just that 1 block forward, because it constricts your opponent's movement as well as elongate the amount of space you have in mid. Again, another reason why it's called snaking. And even though it looks like I have a complete hold over my opponent, which I do, there are still other advanced movements and technicalities that you can do as well once you get a bit better at the game. A few of these include juggling, which is a movement option to help you move blocks a lot quicker, basically carrying 2 at a time. And blocking, which we won't talk about too much here. Talked about it a bit at the start, but again, not really something the community likes, so we just ignore it. But if you do want to see how annoying blocking is, check out some of my other arena videos. As you can see, I've completely won mid, completely won top, and just may as well go bottom. It is just a matter of time before Pigg dies, but they are doing a really good job of defending right now, blocking all the 3 lasers in mid, and again, I have now won basically bottom, so I should be trying to move my mid lasers forward more and more and more. But, just a matter of time. I did a good job of defending though. Again, never stop fighting until the end. You never know when you get a lucky snipe. It happens more than you think. There are also strategies for sniping other players as well. Something you learn over time. So I know the opening kind of looks a bit boring, or it looks the same and repetitive, but there are lots of grounds in truth about how the best way to open is and where you need to prioritize what you should choose over something else, and the best actual movement options and blocks that in order in which you should build them in. So again, Pigg just needs to connect to top now, and then start supering either top or bottom. In this case, I would recommend probably supering top, because I've actually got a laser and a gen there, so that would disrupt my eco a fair bit. They can go for bottom, which is fine, doesn't really matter. So again, bring in a gen now. They need to push that laser just forward to G3. Just need that extra space there. So again, perfect. So that's okay. They've got that F3, which yes, it is an extra block, but it doesn't actually give them any extra energy, and the space doesn't really matter too much. So it ends up just wasting a block and wasting extra time. So again, connect to bottom, bottom to mid, super mid, and then win the game. Perfect. Again, I have actually won top now, so I would either wanting to be trying to connect to mid quicker than they can, or supering bottom back. And as you can see, they have supered mid successfully. Now, they shouldn't be worrying about top right now. They need to capitalize on mid. They need to get rid of that super as soon as possible so it doesn't waste energy. And they need to obviously bring in more lasers, so I have to prioritize my time there. So again, they've tried to win back top or disrupt top, but they haven't. So that was just a complete waste of time and energy. So again, they're kind of standing around not knowing what to do now. Again, they need to just push forward mid. You can't have a super laser attacking. It's not what it's for. And as you can see, I've managed to connect a super to mid, and I'm actually supering back mid. So this is how you're supposed to win it, and it's better to win it as soon as possible. So I know their super is there, and I know I'm running out of energy, but it's something you can do just to stall out your opponent. In the meantime, I'm using my little bit extra energy that I've got to try and super bottom as well, and I can actually connect here because they're trying to disrupt my super. There is a bit of a desync here. There is actually a pink wall here, but you can't see it. So yeah, unfortunately this happens sometime in the game, but you just play around it and it fixes itself eventually. Again, Pigg's wasting a lot of time and energy, still not actually winning mid, because this is why I say a super's not good for offense, because you can just infinitely block it with walls and you won't actually get anywhere. Walls only cost 1, but a super costs 3 energy, plus 2 space as well. So I still have top advantage, I'm slowly starting to win bottom, and mid is actually not happening at all. But Pigg is finally starting to try and win mid. They've got their 2 gens and 2 lasers in there, but as you can see, I'm trying to super it back as soon as possible before they can actually capitalize and use it properly. So again, Pigg needs to bring in another laser, either pop it at probably G5 or G7. G7 would be better because that's where my super is actually connected. So they can just infinitely bring in walls to block, keep these 2 lasers in here, but if you're slow and don't really know what you're doing, hopefully they're not actually standing here doing nothing, yeah, just a desync. But as you can see, they're starting to disrupt my connection, which is really good, because obviously it stops the super. But I have actually won enough back of mid so that I can recontest it. But in the meantime, I still have top, and Pigg hasn't actually won bottom at all. So unfortunately, they did have the start really good, but it's their mid game that they lack a bit of experience in. And you only really know that until you play more games, and obviously you go through these analysis and play with better players so they can tell you how you can improve. And again, as you can see, I've actually managed to connect my super in mid, starting to super it back now, which isn't quite necessary because there's no laser there, but I have a full base of energy. So again, if you have a full base of energy, you should be supering somewhere. Even though supering isn't the best thing to do, there's no point in wasting energy, so you may as well do something with it. So again, 2 gens, 2 lasers, and I can just leave that. I don't even have to win more now, because your opponent can't use this gen because there's a laser in front of it, and they have to prioritize actually blocking it because it is directly in front of their face in that 5, 6, and 7 row. And again, as you can see, using the snaking method, push them as far ahead as possible, constricts movement, and then after that, it's just game's over. Yeah, and they just quit. They just give up.